Can I move on to my second question, which was about UKRI, and indeed we did do a bit of work in our Universities in Scotland inquiry on that, and indeed we had made a recommendation that somebody from the Scottish Funding Council potentially sat in the UKRI Executive Committee. But what we were told by the UK Government was that the appointments are made on a personal experience and skill set rather than specific people with sort of geographical responsibility. But on that, and sort of suppose revisiting it, how effective is the system UKI are using to distribute funding, and do we feel that Scotland is getting its fair share? Professor Fitzpatrick, if I can come to you on that.
Yes, from the Royal Society of Edinburgh's perspective, I think there's good links with UKRI, and the Chief Executive and Board have visited the Royal Society on a number of occasions recently. So they do take their strategy and themselves on road shows and go around at the devolved administrations, the four nations of the UK. And I think they do that to make sure that there is a high level of engagement. Obviously, people always want more, and the Royal Society would say that it would be good to have even greater interaction with UKRI, particularly discussing Scottish research priorities, the areas that we're particularly good at now or want to become particularly good at. And one of the suggestions was to have perhaps an office based here in Scotland where UKRI representatives would be based, and that would make the interactions even closer.
Okay. Would you agree with that, Professor Boswell?
I would agree with that. I would also just point out that we have seen a relative decline in the proportion of UKRI funding coming to Scottish universities from a bit over 15% to roughly 13%.
What do we think the reasons for that are? Is there that, again, back to my sort of last point, is the possibility that there's not other funding pots for Scottish universities to get means that it's more difficult to make bids for UKRI funding?
I think that's spot on. So I think that the type of investment that you need to be competitive for the larger, more complex grants really relies on some core funding, which helps you to leverage your attractiveness in those sorts of bids. So I think that has a knock-on effect.
That's interesting because, again, that came out in the science inquiry session that we had last week.